Question is the motion be agreed to. The honourable member for Elwick.
Thank you, Mr. President. Now, let me start by saying that we are completely conflicted here. It is totally unreasonable to ask an employee to determine their own salary. Tell me one other workplace where this idea would pass the pub test. I can't think of one. None of us should be in a position where we're making decisions related to our own salaries. No one should be, and we didn't have to be, Mr. President. The independent umpire in the Tasmanian Industrial Commission has made that decision for us. However, one person in the other place, the Premier, has decided to challenge the independent umpire, which, based on the pattern of behaviour of this government when it comes to independent umpires, is hardly surprising. To put this decision before the Parliament is extremely poor leadership by the Premier. It's selfish, extremely disappointing, and I thought and hoped he was better than to play politics with people's livelihoods. So we shouldn't be here debating this, but we are, and I have a responsibility to contribute to the debate and make a decision based on what I think the people I represent and the people of Tasmania would consider to be fair and reasonable. Mr. President, I'm pretty confident that the people of Tasmania would consider it fair and reasonable, even right, that we don't determine or make decisions on our own salaries. The people of Tasmania would rightly expect that we have nothing to do with decisions related to our salaries. Leave it to the independent umpire. I'm conflicted and I'm leaving this decision to the independent umpire, and therefore I will not support the disallowance motion. That is the crux of it for me, but for context, I take this opportunity to further put on the record some of the background here, as the Deputy Leader did, and some of what the Tasmanian Industrial Commission's 105-page determination report actually says. In the preamble, the report says, this report into parliamentary salaries and allowances has been undertaken by the full bench of the Tasmanian Industrial Commission under Part 3 of the Parliamentary Salaries, Superannuation and Allowances Act 2012. In accordance with Sections 3C and 3E of the 2012 Act, the Commission has conducted an inquiry into the basic salary payable to each Member of Parliament, the kinds of and amounts of any additional salary payable to Members of Parliament holding specified offices, and the kinds of and amounts of allowances and benefits payable to each Member of Parliament. Goes on to say, this determination relates to the period 1 July 2018 to 30 June 2025. As a result, the increases which are recommended may seem large. However, they are based on the wage price index or the consumer price index, which track inflation and real movements in salary. The increases are calculated on 30 June in each year, are payable from 1 July of that calendar year, based on the WPI or CPI calculated on 1 December in the previous year. In respect to the salary component of the determination, the sum of the annual increases over the relevant time 2018 to 2025 is 20.5%. This is comparable with the increases provided by the public sector wages agreements. For the period 2018 to 2024, the public sector increases were 15.55% or 2.59% average over the 5 years. The increase recommended in this determination for the same period is 16.6%. The recommended average annualised percentage increase from 2018 to 2025 is 2.92%. It will be apparent that the salary increase from $140,185 to $171,527.50 is 22.36%. That is because the increases have been compounded from year to year by adding the increased amount to the previous year, which has increases from previous years already added to it. The recommended increase for Members of Parliament is comparable, though slightly more than, increases in the public sector wages agreements for a similar period. In our view, that increase is modest and appropriate, taking into account all the circumstances. The report does not deal with the question of back pay. Rather, the determination calculates increases year by year. The determination states that the increase commences from 1 July 2025. It goes on to say, for the avoidance of doubt, this recommendation does not provide for the payment of back pay or retrospective payment of the recommended increases. And I end quoting from the report. So, Mr. President, the Tasmanian Industrial Commission, or TIC, has made a determination on what it believes to be a fair and reasonable salary and allowances for Members of Parliament in 2025. There hasn't been such a determination made for 7 years, so the percentage increase in the TIC's determination provides for a 22.36% increase in salary and allowances compared to the last time a determination on salary and allowances was made back in 2018. Let me be clear on this. It has been 7 years since members of Parliament received their last pay increase. 7 years without a red cent more than the amount determined by the TIC to be a reasonable salary and allowance for a Member of Parliament in 2018. As I always do, Mr President, I turn my mind to what is the problem we are trying to solve here by disallowing the determination of the TIC. Is it that a 2.92% annual increase doesn't pass the pub test? I don't think so. Is it that a 2.92% annual increase framed as a 22.36% increase in one hit doesn't pass the pub test? Maybe, if it's not explained in the context. But then you've also got to consider the unintended consequences here of trying to solve the problem this way, which include that this knee-jerk populist approach does not address the problem at its core. Because, Mr President, the real problem here is not that a 22.36% annual increase over the 8 years doesn't pass the pub test. The real problem here is that the current process for determining the salary and allowances of members of Parliament is flawed, because in no other industry or sector would it be acceptable for a worker to turn up to work every day for 7 years earning not 1 red cent more. Who would patiently wait for an enterprise bargaining agreement or other determination for 7 years? Members of Parliament are effectively public servants. We are here to serve the public. Employees or unions associated with the public service would not accept a pay freeze without a red cent increase in 7 years. Imagine the outrage if nurses, public servants, nurses, paramedics, police officers or construction workers even were not provided with a salary increase for 7 years. There would be strikes and public outrage and media outrage in support of those workers. In no other industry would it be acceptable for a worker to be in this position that the Premier has put us in today. Now, I'm relatively new to this place, Mr President, so the impact of no salary increase across a period of 7 years does not impact me in the same way it impacts my longer-serving colleagues, but I think it's worth putting this impact on the record, because I lament the fact that honourable members in this place and the other place who have long served without the protection of all the other industrial relations laws rightly afforded to the public service and most other sectors have been left behind in supporting themselves, their families and the electorates over the past 7 years. Thank you. Due to the delayed decision of the Tasmanian Industrial Commission. Now, on top of being left behind financially in that delay, the Premier is asking members to leave each other further behind in not accepting the determination of the TIC. Shame on this government for playing politics with pay rises. There were other options they could have taken, Mr President, if they were concerned that this didn't pass the pub test. They could have chosen not to accept it themselves as a party. They could have chosen not to accept increases to ministerial loadings on top of their salary. Any member, as the Deputy Leader pointed out, can choose not to accept a pay rise. And should this motion be negatived, any member who votes in support of this disallowance motion, in this and the other place, can still choose not to accept the increase in salary. And in my view, anyone who supports the disallowance absolutely should refuse to accept the pay rise. Their vote indicates that they truly believe that accepting a pay rise is not the right thing to do. So they shouldn't. That is integrity. Unintended or not, the consequences of what the Premier is asking us to do are significant on a number of fronts. Elected members can only do the job for the love of their community at any financial cost to themselves and their families for so long. Now, let me be clear. I'm not saying that we are not paid well, Mr President. I acknowledge that what we earn is more than the average wage. It's more than many people that we are privileged to represent in this place earn. But we have rising bills to pay too. Cost of living increases affect everyone. That's the reality. And the reality is that salary is a factor in most people's choice to pursue or not to pursue certain careers, including politics. Further freezing the salary of parliamentarians beyond 7 years could mean members resign for higher paid positions in the public service, where there is less scrutiny and pressure and more family-friendly hours, leave provisions and promotional opportunities. And fundamentally, further freezing the salary of parliamentarians means it will be difficult to encourage well-qualified people to run for public office, when they can earn more money, achieve good outcomes and be in a less high-pressure environment elsewhere. It's pretty simple, Mr President. You don't get better leadership by paying people less money. We deserve to have the best people represent the state of Tasmania and its people. Plus, delaying pay rises only shifts it down the track to where it inevitably has to increase by an even larger amount to catch up eventually. It is not courageous to avoid a pay rise. It's courageous to make one happen in the best interests of Tasmania and its people.